Will you pray with me? Holy God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts and minds be pleasing to you, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Okay, so 2 different kinds of stories. The first one, when I was 8, I lived with my aunt here in Fort Worth. My dad lived in Austin. My parents had split up, but he had started seeing a wonderful woman, Jan, who became my stepmom, became my mom. And they were engaged that summer I was 8, and they took me with them to Crested Butte, where her parents were building a house. And so they were building the house out of town, but right in town, everybody was staying. So I went with them, and there were all these people there that I didn't know that were her family. But it was so much fun, and it was a big, huge, boisterous group. And a lot of the folks that were involved in the construction of the house were also staying in town at this rent house. And so there I was with them. And one day, I had the chance to go to the little movie theater that was downtown and see Sleeping Beauty. So I went and got to see Sleeping Beauty, and then came out and walked home to the little rent house. And my dad and my soon-to-be stepmom had left, and they had gone to go stay in a hotel. But they hadn't told me that they were going to leave. And I didn't really know these people that were there. And it hit really deep, because the thing that I wanted more than anything in the world was time with my dad and was his love. And I already kind of thought that maybe I was an inconvenience, and that's why my parents had divorced. And so I assumed that they had left because I was too much trouble. And I was so embarrassed and hurt, and I decided I was going to walk home to Fort Worth. And so I started out, and I made it 30 feet, and then I got scared and realized I don't want to really do this, and so I went back. But they were escaping the chaos. There was, as a kid, I didn't really realize some of the levels of chaos that were going on, and they just wanted some privacy, and that's why they did what they did. But it was this perfect storm for me of something hitting in a really deep place. Because when you're little, things can hit that if there was a scale of trauma, the trauma meter, that shows how big things are, this would have been way down low, because I wasn't hurt, I was fine, people loved me, it was all good. So, there are a lot of worse things. But for me, in that moment, in that place, boom, that hit me. And I absolutely adore my dad and my stepmom. She's my mom, all of that. And so I've forgiven, whatever there was to forgive, I have forgiven. But what happens that's weird is that it's one of those hurts, because we're kind of like onions, and things go into all these layers. At different points in my life, out of nowhere, up comes this memory and this pain again. And I have to deal with it again. Because certain developmental things you go through, certain growth, God wants to grow us, and you have to sometimes go back and revisit. But I used to think, well, have I not let that go? Have I not forgiven them? Am I holding on to it? And I've had to kind of grapple with that question of, I thought I had resolved this eons ago. Why is this back up again to be dealt with almost like fresh feelings of the pain? So that happens for me, that comes up, and I find myself wondering about forgiveness, and have I done it right? Am I doing forgiveness wrong? And is that why it keeps coming? Okay, the other story isn't about me, it's about my friend. A few years ago, my really dear friend Jerry called me, and I couldn't understand what he was saying, because it sounded like he was crying and he was trying to get words out. And what had happened was that the love of his life, Morgan, had been on her way to work, and early in the morning, and she was hit by a drunk driver and killed. And Jerry didn't know how he was going to make it through it. But I watched him as he went through a process. The guy who was driving the other car was like 20 years old, and he already had a DUI on his record. And he was put into an alcohol program to help him as part of the court-ordered thing. But it was like this scam. You just showed up, and they didn't really do anything. There was no counseling. They just took the money, I guess. So he hadn't gotten any help. And through this process, Jerry started feeling a tremendous amount of compassion for this kid. He felt like he was a victim as much as Jerry was. And Jerry started working to reform some of the laws in Washington state to try and make sure that people that are court-ordered into these programs get into good ones so that that would never happen again. Jerry even testified at this guy's trial and hoped that he would have a life worth living and that he could pull his life together. And he felt sorry for him. So he didn't harbor anger and bitterness towards this guy. He really did work that through. But that didn't stop him from feeling agonies of grief over Morgan. So what I've come to realize is that there are two separate tracks that are going on. One track is the pain of the thing that happened to you. It's easier to think of it as physical pain. If somebody's like, waka, and breaks your arm, you're going to be mad at them and have feelings about them doing that to you, right? But you're also going to be like, ow, that hurts my arm, and it's going to hurt until it's healed. So there's two separate things going on. But it gets complicated because you can feel no anger, no bitterness. That's what forgiveness is, when you can release all of those feelings about a person and have an open heart towards this person. But you can still feel a massive amount of pain from the thing that happened. And the little kicker is that sometimes when that pain comes back up, when you remember it, when you're growing and it comes back up to be reevaluated and it's fresh, you can get mad again. And then you forgive again. So I think that when Jesus tells us about forgiveness, there's several things we have to think about. And one is, Jesus wanted us to have open hearts and see each other with compassion and love our people, love enemies, love everyone. But the only way you can do that is if you keep your heart open. If you've got anger and bitterness and hardness, resentment, you harden up, and the Holy Spirit can't work through you if your heart is hard. So Jesus wants us to forgive people. But sometimes people do the stupid thing or the horrible thing again and again. Like I think Peter was dealing with some yahoo in the church who just kept irritating him. And each time, you're supposed to forgive him each time. But even deeper than that, y'all, I think that there are times when you think, I've done this, I'm good, I've forgiven, but the pain of what you experienced kind of comes back up. Sometimes because we dwell on it, and that's something that you can work on. But sometimes like out of nowhere, and in that instance, if you feel your anger again, if you feel that hardening again, you have to forgive again, and it keeps happening. So it's more complicated. Anyone that thinks that forgiveness is one and done, it's making it way too simple. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you can understand and get it and move on. But some things go deeper than that. And then we're called upon to forgive again and again. And forgiveness, another thing that I have misunderstood, forgiveness doesn't mean that the person has to feel remorse or that they're not going to do it again. Again, that idea of Jesus is just keep forgiving them. But that makes it tougher. It's easier to forgive someone who says, I am so sorry, I will never do this again, and you believe it. But if there's somebody that's like, I'm glad I did it, and I'm just going to keep doing it, where's my hammer? Then, you still need to forgive them. But you don't have to put your arm out there, okay, one more time. We can also protect ourselves from toxic people and still have compassion for them. It's like if a little dog, you go to pet it and it bites your hand, you might feel compassion for that dog, but you're going to stay a couple of steps back, right? You can take care of yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation every time. Sometimes it does. But somebody could be dead and gone, and you can forgive them. This is about your heart and the hardness of your heart and you being able to let go of your anger and your bitterness and wish the other person well. And I have found that the most direct way to get to it, the question is, well, how do you do that? That sounds great. Just forgive them, let it go. Well, how? And what all of the studies show is that the way that you can move through to forgiveness is if you find a point of empathy or compassion with that person. You don't condone what they did. But if you hold on to needing to be right and all of those things, again, you just wall up. But if you can think about, why would this person have done what they did? And you can find it in yourself, like you get it. You have to get it. If somebody had a horrible childhood and so they are abusive later, if somebody is mentally ill, if they were feeling jealous, I mean, there's a whole range of things that you can feel for. That opens a door for you to feel compassion for the person. And again, even if you don't ever see them again, if you can find a way to understand the needs that were going on for them behind what they did, you can end up getting free of it. And then you can pray God's blessings on them and hope for good for them, and God will work to heal you through that. So those are some of the things. I want to say this. You may be the best person in the world. It may be that if there was a God's eye view, that it's you, Griffin, it's you. You are the best person in the world, it turns out. And you are loving and generous and kind. You would never do anything hard or hurtful to anybody. I think it's actually, if that's your story about yourself, it's going to be harder for you to forgive. Because on some level, you're going to be thinking, I would never have done that. Never. That, and you wall off. If you can find those places in yourself where you can kind of understand the need. In my parents' case, I understand the need for privacy and wanting some time. And I understand doing something, you know, if they had told me they were going, oh, take me with you. They didn't want to have to deal with that. And I kind of understand that too. And so if I can find that in myself. I hear things about people that hurt children. And I think, oh, but you know what? I have been frustrated. And I've felt, and I'm just blessed to have the tools that I have to take a time out, whatever I need to do. If you can find the shadow part of you, it's funny, that opens up your ability to empathize and have compassion for others so much more than if you're like, I'm a good person, because that story keeps you from empathizing. You know, even somebody like Hitler, that's always like, that's our example of like the worst person in the world. If Griffin is the best person in the world, Hitler, we all have to agree, is the worst. But even him, you know, think about him. He wanted power. He was sick in the head. He wanted, he was scared. You can start kind of feeling, and I felt scared. I felt like I wanted power over what made me afraid. All of those things can open you up. There is a poet, a Buddhist writer and poet that many of you I know have probably heard of, Thich Nhat Hanh. And he's written beautiful things. And he heard about a story in his native Thailand area of these folks that were trying to escape as refugees on a boat. And as they were going out, there was a young girl, pirates came and attacked the boat. And the young girl was badly hurt, and she ended up jumping overboard and was killed. And he heard this story, and as he thought about it, he ended up writing a poem, and I'm going to read you an excerpt of it. He says, I am a mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I'm the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I'm a frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being hurt by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I'm a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true name, so I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open, the door of compassion. See, this hard work, we've been talking about, this is the worst good news ever. This hard work of seeing ourselves in others, loving our neighbors as ourselves, Jesus wanted us to know we are all connected and we are all alike. Now, we're going to make different choices, but that's how our compassion can flow. And that's the kind of open-hearted, wholeheartedness that Jesus was wanting us to move towards. So when he says forgive and forgive and forgive, he means stay open-hearted, stay light in your heart so the Spirit can move through you. And when an event from your own past comes up again fresh, allow yourself to have empathy for yourself around the pain. So if this comes up for me, I'll probably be 90 and this stupid mess from Colorado will still come up for me. Like, oh no, I'm so sorry for myself. But you know what? Even at 90, I need to be able to say, that little girl just wanted her daddy and wanted to feel belonging. And I can feel empathy. And then if I need to forgive my dad again, I will forgive him because I get it over and over and over again. So if somebody wants your forgiveness and you're having trouble and they say, I thought you'd moved past that. I thought we'd already gotten past it. Understand, they want reconciliation. They want the relationship. They want to not remember that this horrible thing happened. But you take time for yourself because it isn't as easy as, all right, I'm just letting that go sometimes. So we continue to move through to be open-hearted people in this world, loving the ones who are hardest to love, loving even those ones who have hurt us, because Jesus can use us open-hearted. Some people say that when you have a heartbreak, it actually, you think of it as breaking your heart open so that more can flow through. It's sometimes in our pain and our woundedness that the Holy Spirit uses us most. So if you need to talk to people and work on healing, remember the pain of the event stands separate from your ability to forgive the people who did it. They're both painful and they relate to each other, but you can forgive and still carry pain. Seek out help. There are people that can help you move through it. But breathe kindness into your heart and breathe it out to the world. That's the kind of freedom that Jesus wants for us, so that we can be his hands and feet right here and right now. Forgiveness is a big theme. It was a big theme in the Lord's Prayer. So if you would you bow and join with me and let's say our Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And now if you would all please rise, and let's join in our closing song.